Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Dr. DeRionne Pollard joins us. She's the president of Nevada State University, brand new, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
It's the $100,000 Cash is King Progressive giveaways at Carson Valley Inn. Giveaways every Saturday with a Progressive up to $20K and $15,000 in guaranteed grand prize giveaways. There's another 100,000 reasons to play and win at the Carson Valley Inn.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
Big R in Sparks is located on Bering Boulevard next to Smith's and across from Reed High School for workwear and everyday wear. Evaporative coolers, outdoor living, Weber's, Traeger's, and Lodge. Fill your propane tanks here. Big R on Bering Boulevard in Sparks, next to Smith's and across from Reed High School. Big R. Hardware, clothing, and a whole lot more. As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's Development Company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's Development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the air conditioning back on today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why sweat for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your air conditioning fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're delighted to welcome back to the program Dr. DeRionne Pollard. She is the president of Nevada State University. We'll get to that in a moment, but we were chatting before we started taping, and you mentioned that you have been to India multiple times. What were you doing in India?
I had the privilege of serving as a president in Montgomery County, Maryland, and in that state there were a number of what they call sister city relationships where I got to go with both the mayor, the county executive, and the governor of that state to really build commerce and trade there. But then as a result of that, my particular institution at the time was working with and contracted with several entities in India to help them develop a community college system. So we were doing work to really think about how you build the middle class through education, and it was powerful. So I got to go back and forth for many times, so much so that I was thoroughly convinced I would have to pay taxes there or they would be offering me a job permanently. I really love India. It was a phenomenal experience.
So with over 1.3 billion people, it is a huge population center. Obviously, even though we see pictures of mass poverty at times, there is also mass riches there. There's a huge middle class. And I remember Rossi Rollencotter, who was the head of the convention authority for many years prior to the current leadership, who talked to me probably 15 years ago about targeting India as a place to bring tourism to Las Vegas. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that makes a lot of good sense when you look at this new democracy that is, as you described, one of the largest in the world. The idea that we could build a relationship where there is both an opportunity to take our experiences and our knowledge and wisdom to a certain extent to help build an infrastructure that's there, but also at the same time build that same infrastructure and relationship in a way that they can come here and do that. I think that's potentially powerful. The other thing that I love about India, and we oftentimes dismiss this, this idea that they have coexisted multiple religions in one space, multiple ethnic groups, but they have done this in a way that they've learned a rhythm about how they do this. They have a tremendous value on family, a tremendous value on culture. I'd like to think there's something to be learned from that experience that we could benefit from as a region and certainly as a state.
You know, it's also interesting that, you know, we are so insular in the United States where we really don't look around the world to see what's going on in other places.
Yes.
And the relationship between India and Pakistan, two nuclear nations that have been on the brink of war for so long.
Yes.
And when we have discussions, we talk about Russia, we talk about China, but we don't talk about India and Pakistan.
I think it has a lot to do with where we get our news sources. And to be quite frank, I think in a lot of ways we have dummied down America. We have said Americans to the extent we can. Here are a few news sources that you can get in. And to be quite frank, they are oftentimes owned by the similar conglomerates. They have the stories that they're going to tell. I think the best thing to do is oftentimes for me to go to different places and get your news in different sources. To watch the news in India is a very different experience than watching the news in the States. To watch the news in different parts of Asia, very different, even Europe. So I think the idea for us is to really expand our knowledge base. I try to make sure I do that. I love every morning listening to global news and thinking, oh, let me get my map out so I can actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yes.
All right, let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk about how you went from being the president of a state college to a magician, because you ended up with a university. We'll be right back after this timeout.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Safety is the #1 priority for the trucking industry. Over $7 billion a year is spent on technology, like this electronic eye, that will apply the brakes automatically. But the most important factor for safety is the truck driver. These hardworking men and women who safely move over 70% of our nation's freight and 94% of Nevada's. We thank you, because trucks move America forward.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue with our conversation with Dr. DeRionne Pollard. She is the president of Nevada State University. And if you're saying to yourself, I didn't know we had a Nevada State University, you showed up in Nevada 2 years ago. You're a Chicago girl. And did you have a design from day one that you wanted to turn Nevada State College to Nevada State University?
Absolutely not. In fact, it's probably unwise to have taken that on in my first 2 years here as the president of what was already a traditionally established state college. But my predecessor had started this conversation, Bart Patterson, with the community prior to my arrival. They contracted with consultants to help develop some research studies around this. So when I arrived, literally in my interview process on campus, many faculty and staff said, what's your position on this issue of a renaming? We are very much supportive of this. And then I had students ask this question upon my arrival, and my response was always the same. if this is about changing mission, I have no interest in it. I moved here after a very successful presidency because I believed in this mission and what Nevada State could do in the community. But if it's about brand, if it is about how we market ourselves, I'm willing to sit down and have that conversation. And I did that. I talked with our alumni. I spent time with our consultants who'd actually done the study, our business leaders, government leaders, and to a person, they all talked about three things that were important. One is the value proposition and the value of the credential. Many of our alumni were graduating from Nevada State College and were spending time in interviews explaining that they actually had a baccalaureate degree or a master's degree, because we have a graduate program. And they were very troubled by that because they felt their credential was not receiving the same value or seen as having the same value as one of a college or a university. So I thought that was very interesting. Secondly, we had business leaders that couldn't differentiate in our community the difference between our phenomenal state community college there, CSN, and then Nevada State. So we wanted to have that market differentiation. And then third, and probably most important to me, is that we need to redefine the higher education narrative in the state of Nevada.
In what way?
Well, I think part of it is that we are not known as a state for being deeply connected to an education mission. And for me, this idea of saying that we have two phenomenal R1 institutions that are doing the production of new scholarship in this state, in this country, is important. In the globe, we have an excellent research institution which is changing the game on everything as it relates to sustainability and water. We have a robust community college system that's doing outstanding work in creating access to higher education. And we have a state institution that sits in that mid-tier. And it's okay to call us university because that's what we do. We have undergraduate and graduate programs. We are able to house folks on our campus. We are delivering in-time, in-demand credentials for the new economy. Why are we not calling ourselves what is a common term in higher education on this side of the country? And as a result of that, I was able to move forward with a lot of support from lots of people to make that happen.
Okay, was there any pushback? Because of term limits, a lot of the people who originally put together Nevada State College are no longer serving.
Yes.
But there was certainly a pushback at that time to say, hey, we need something in the middle between the community college and the university system.
Yes.
So did anybody push back on that?
Yes, and to be quite frank, we haven't changed any of that. We're still in the middle as an institution. We are not operating in any of those spaces. And in most higher education states, in systems in the country, there are multiple layers of higher education. So yes, there were many who were like, well, how will this affect our R1 institutions? How will this affect land grant status? Will this be more expensive? Will it change admission standards? And I was able to sit down and talk with most people and say, no, none of this changes. This is literally a name change. It's not a mission change. We're not changing our identity. We're already just doubling down on the work that we do and being very happy to do that work in our space.
All right, let's take another break and we'll be right back.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
The casino industry drove Nevada's economy for decades. By the 1990s, however, the state's sole industry was in sharp decline. Many were losing their homes, many were leaving the state. Is Reno on track to be the Detroit of the West? Was an October 2010 Reno Gazette-Journal headline. Nevada knew it was time for a change and a time to diversify. Story County took that lead, took risks, invested tens of millions transforming its desert into a place of opportunity and a future for Nevada families needing something new. That desert now provides thousands of high-paying tech, advanced manufacturing, and energy careers at companies like Tesla, Panasonic, Google, Switch, and Redwood Materials. Story County transformed Northern Nevada forever, and the tide of opportunity has raised all vessels through construction contracts, high-paying careers, and the power of payroll. Tens of millions have been generated in sales and property tax. permits, and other revenues for Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, and for all of Nevada. Enough, in fact, to generate a surplus after public services are provided. And best of all, a sustainable economic climate has been created, enabling our children to stay in Nevada and live prosperous lives in their home state. Story County, improving Northern Nevada one industry at a time.
Fantastic cocktails and delicious food.
It's a good time to eat.
Over 500 hot slots, plus electronic table games.
It's a good time to play.
Player rewards and big-time jackpots.
It's a good time to win.
Ooh, your good times at Tamarack.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Dr. DeRionne Pollard. She is the president of Nevada State University. So basically, for those that don't or haven't dealt in this area so far, you're going to be continuing on with workforce development and not into areas of research. Is that correct? Is that the way you lay it out?
So state colleges, I think, traditionally have been crafted to, I believe, build the middle class. So you look at most state colleges, they started off oftentimes delivering in key programs such as education, nursing, and so forth, which are our key and staple programs at Nevada State University. In fact, nearly half of all nurses that are baccalaureately prepared in the state, they come from Nevada State University already. So we are not going to be changing our mission. We have faculty who engage in research. They are phenomenal at that. But they don't want to be oftentimes in the grind of the publishing parish. They are not out as their primary role producing new scholarship. Their primary role is teaching. Our faculty come to us doctorally prepared, master's prepared, because they want to be in the classroom helping young people who have traditionally been underrepresented in higher education have access to that. So yes, they'll still do some research. They already have done that. We'll do workforce development. We'll also build the next generation, hopefully, of business entrepreneurs, teachers, scientists, whatever the case may be, but in a very different space. We operate as an access-based institution, which is very different than what we may see from our wonderful institutions at UNR and UNLV.
Okay, so you're not looking at competition between...
Oh, you know, I tell this all the time. I've never seen a place where too much education has failed. In fact, I think we all raise the quality of life when we have more education. So there's no competition here. I very clearly know our lane. They very clearly know their lane. And here's the thing I tell people. Nevada is still relatively a young state. All we have to do is look at this model across the country to know, yes, we can take the best parts of it and make it our own, and where all of us can coexist thoughtfully and deliberately.
Okay, are you going to be looking at grant funding in addition to state funding?
Oh, we already receive grant funding. We have lots of grant funds that come in for lots of different programs that speak to access, that also allow us to look at the scholarship of teaching and learning. Lots of grants that have us thinking deliberately about how we deliver our educational mission more effectively. We've also been very useful, engaged in congressionally earmarked dollars to allow us to, again, meet certain needs for us: nursing, education, early childhood education. In fact, a commuter bus that's going between the campuses of CSN and Nevada State. So we have been very effective in that space, and I hope that we'll continue.
And Congresswoman Dina Titus has been a big supporter, correct?
Wonderful. We have had Congresswoman Dina Titus, Congresswoman Susie Lee. They have been instrumental, I think, in the growth and development of Nevada State.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because we just did a program yesterday where we were talking about K through 12 education. And there's always been this dilemma between people coming out of K through 12 and then having to go back and learn things to be able to get into college, university.
Sure.
How do you view this? Because it seems, you know, I've been doing these kind of shows for 40 years, and I've been hearing the same story for 40 years. Why do we still need remedial education?
Well, I think if someone could figure that out, they might be able to get them a very effective Nobel Prize or even Pulitzer for this, because it is a very complex, both social and economic phenomenon. There was a book many years ago that I read that looked at the funding of K-12 education in the state of Illinois. As you know, I'm a Chicago girl.
Right.
So it struck me. It was profound in that when you have a system that's based on property taxes, oftentimes, you're going to have a disproportionate and unequal effect in terms of the quality of the educational systems there. And moreover, when you look at pathways to teaching, you know, I told people the other day, and this has been very interesting, we watch what's happening in the K-12 space right now. We're having a reckoning in this country right now. On one hand, we have told teachers, go out, you're the best thing since sliced bread. We want more of you. We value you deeply. And yet we put them in environments where they are working with students and families who have very complex existences. We underfund them. We tell them to go in and deal with unbelievable strategy that is not very effective. Oh, and by the way, we put them in poor governance situations where they're constantly trying to figure out and deal with people telling them what happens in the classroom who've never had to teach a day in their life. So you put all of those circumstances together, and we wonder why we have some of the outputs that we have right now. I'm of the belief that remedial education will always exist because there is a need for that. Some students learn at different rates. They need different skills and different talents to help them get there. But there should be some clear articulation of what the expectations are. And I'm not quite sure we have a shared understanding of what a young person who graduates from 12th grade should be able to do as a result of having completed that particular course of study. I have a 16-year-old. He's a junior in high school. And every day I ask him, go through each class and tell me what you're doing. Help me understand where you are. He is in a family where he has a very well-educated parent set who are engaged in his experience. That is not the lived experience of every young person in this country. And we have to be thoughtful about that. The other part about this for me that's very profound, we have adults who are going to be changing careers. When I moved here, I heard every day, and this was it, you only need a 12th grade education to be successful. You don't need college. And I say, well, who are we talking about? Are we talking about the kids in Summerlin as well as the kids in North Las Vegas? Are we being very deliberate about whose kids we're talking about in that space? These are all questions, to be quite frank, that I'm not quite sure we're prepared for the answers.
Is this a nationwide problem?
It is a nationwide problem. And because we are, going to our earlier conversation, oftentimes disconnected from the broader discourse communities, every community, I've lived in 4 states, every state that I've lived in, there's always a conversation about the quality of education, the output, how do we make sure that we're preparing young people for the world in which they're going to work. We haven't, though, developed, I think, a collective national approach to how we solve these problems.
Okay, so is it an organizational thing? Is it, you know, do we have to separate out the funding of teachers' salaries, class sizes, versus, you know, just saying, you know, we demand that, you know, every kid that comes out of K through 12 is ready to come into the university system, at least to a degree.
Yeah, this is a macro system issue, and as you describe, it's very complex. It's about how learners show up prepared. You know, how many words does a kindergartner have when they step into the classroom? That is almost a predictor of how they're going to succeed later on in standardized tests, because that means they were exposed to these things, they had reading and books in their home, they had adequate pre-K education. Then you magnify that as they move through an educational system. If you are hungry, if you have unsafe environments to live in, if your family is on the edge oftentimes, education is the least thing that you're thinking about, and yet it's the place where you oftentimes feel the safest. If you go through this through a K-12 experience, all of these factors become far more complex.
Okay, but you know, what's ironic about all this is that we live in this computer age, this cell phone age of technology. You know, somebody can be as poor can be, and yet they have a cell phone. Right? And yet COVID showed us that we were totally unprepared for a situation where technology was going to be paramount. We failed miserably at that.
I don't disagree with you on that at all. And in fact, The irony about that is, yes, because people may have cell phones, but do they have adequate broadband access to get to the places on the internet that they need to get to? Do they know how to manipulate the device to be able to do the work that they need to get done? The dirty secret that all of us thought, oh, we've got online education. So we had COVID, we put all these kids, both K-12 and higher ed, into online courses. Some institutions did it very well, but some environments could not. When I arrived, I remember hearing about some families that in North Chicago, North Las Vegas, they actually had to put an internet in a parking lot so children could come with their Chromebooks to get access to that. The idea that we have technology everywhere doesn't mean that there's equity in the access to that. So I think there's a lot of work that has to be done in this space.
On the other hand, if you want to know how to fix your phone, don't ask an older person, ask a younger person, because they are so technically proficient on their phones.
They have no fear of the phone. That's the difference. I'm always fearful if I hit the wrong button, it won't work anymore, right?
Yeah, right?
That's not their fear.
No, and I went through that back in the 80s with the first computers I worked on. I was terrified that I was going to destroy the thing. It just seems that we are going to have another COVID type situation.
Sure we will.
It's not if, it's when.
Yep.
And how do we prepare for that? And you've got about a minute to answer that. But it's a huge deal because of the problems we are dealing with now with kids who have come out of this, who are now in their early 20s, who are having all kinds of social problems.
I agree, and I think the greatest answer to this is that we need to do what oftentimes strategists call this pre-planning, to look very deeply and say, if this is going to happen again, what did we learn from the last time, and apply those lessons ahead of time? And right now, have we failed tested the system? Have we been very deliberate in asking the uncomfortable questions that need to be asked? Who's being left behind? Are we prepared to serve those folks? And are we prepared for the consequences if we don't do it well?
And is the answer no?
I think so.
And that's where we have to leave it. It is always a pleasure
to
visit with you.
Thank you.
Please come back again soon. It's always enjoyable.
Thank
you. And we'll be right back.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
7 at 7 is a newscast built for your smartphone. It's a 7-minute newscast available every weekday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at lvrj.com. We don't waste your time, and we give you the day's top stories.
We at the RJ have noticed some similarities between us and a certain BTS character, RJ.
Plus the latest in Las Vegas business, weather, health, and entertainment news. 7 at 7 streaming now on your smartphone.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Event Center sits at the heart of the Las Vegas Strip. 2 floors of meeting and event space are ideal for groups and conventions. Stay in one of 200 luxurious rooms and suites. Brand your event throughout the property. Flexible event spaces make for easy planning and personalization. Take over the entire hotel with a full buyout option.
Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers. You can always watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day by downloading the audio or video podcast, watching us on YouTube, or just go to the website, NevadaNewsmakers.com. We'll see you on the next podcast.